What's going on, vinyl community and Kiss Army? Welcome to the 10th episode of Council of the Elder, a series discussing the hottest band in the world with Kiss fans and people in the Kiss sphere, hosted by yours truly, the Record Spinner. This episode consists of my interview / discussion with Michael Edwards. Now, how this came about is rather intriguing because I always appreciate it when people that watch the channel go to great lengths to reach out to me beyond the Record Spinner realm to say how much they enjoy what I do. And that's what Michael had done, but what else he told me threw me in for a total shock and surprise. Michael Edwards is Bruce Kulick's archivist, and he had done some graphic design work for the vinyl releases of his albums BK3 and Audio Dog. He had also designed the original Eric Carr Rockology vinyl pressing that was released by the Rockologists. He's a guy that usually stays behind the scenes, but he had reached out and asked about appearing on the series, to which I was more than happy to have him involved. But before I go into what Michael and I discussed, I want to share with you all some exciting Bruce Kulick news that I'm sure some of you may have heard already. Bruce's second solo album, Transformer, is being re-released for the first time ever for Record Store Day on April 18th, 2026 via Culture Factory. It'll be available in runs limited to 2,000 copies on vinyl and 1,000 copies on CD. The vinyl comes with a printed inner sleeve featuring a track-by-track written by Bruce and is pressed on purple and yellow vinyl. The CD version comes as a miniature LP with the CD itself having a vinyl look to it, just like the Eric Carr releases done prior. And Michael actually did the new artwork for this version. He was gracious enough to share the news with me, and I am more than happy to spread it here. So be sure to line up at your local mom and pop record store and get yourself a copy of Bruce Kulick's Transformer on April 18th, 2026 for Record Store Day. Now on to Michael and I's conversation. Now, he and I went into detail about the Kiss fan club that he ran back in the early 90s and how that developed into having a close working relationship with Bruce Kulick and running the fan club for his group Union in the late 90s, and also some loose ties with the Kiss organization around the time of the reunion. Obviously, we went into detail about the Eric Carr and Bruce Kulick vinyl releases, and we even discussed Kiss tapes that Bruce has in his personal archives, and that involves soundboard recordings from the Hot in the Shade tour. You heard that right, so do not let this video pass you by. If you want minutia, this is the interview to listen to. I've done enough babbling, so without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, Michael, take us back to the beginning. What was your initial exposure to Kiss?
So that's interesting. My first exposure to Kiss, I think probably for a lot of us, was our parents, or my parents were very musically diverse, but my dad, not really into hard rock as much,
Okay.
My dad was a huge Elvis fan, and I came by the collecting bug series, honestly, I think it has to be genetic because he had a bunch of that stuff, which I now have. So if anybody wants Elvis bootleg CDs, please reach out. I have every show. I've often joked if the band farted, I have it in both mono and stereo. So I have everything. But anyway, so he heard I Was Made for Loving You on the radio. So this is 79. I'm 5 years old. He brings home the record. I never see them. All I heard the album, I heard the music, and I liked it. And kind of wondered in, what are you playing? What is that? And the one I remember standing out was actually Magic Touch. Was the first song that I remember hearing and being like, that's such a great song. I love this band,
Okay.
And so then, you see them and stuff. And I remember he gave me the poster out of the Dynasty album, and it was on my wall, and I would turn the lights out at night and Gene's face would glow at me and I couldn't sleep. But that began the okay, this is my band kind of thing. And so the Dynasty record did not remain in his collection very long. It soon gravitated
made its way to yours.
And then it was like, this is what I want for Christmas. For every holiday, that was give me Kiss records, because I remember my first one that I got that was actually was Alive 2.
Okay.
You think about it, at Christmas, my grandparents bought me Alive 2, and there's Gene with the blood on the cover, and I'm like, they had to be going, all right, whatever, we'll do that. And I think it was a phase, everybody thought, oh, this will be a phase.
Sure.
But the inner sleeve, of course, had the different records.
Yeah.
My first copy of Alive 2, I remember, had check marks by
So
each of
that
the
was your checkbox. It was
right.
like, all right, got to
Yeah,
get these
I don't
now.
have this one. I don't have this one. So my exposure to them was so all over the place, because I didn't get the albums in order. So it took a while for me to kind of put together that, like, okay, the band that did Hotter Than Hell and Dressed to Kill, and then Destroyer, and then Dynasty, that's a very diverse musical palette.
Yeah.
And as much as I credit my parents with like my musical diversity and how much I like different things, I think Kiss did it too, because you can't really listen to the whole Kiss catalog and not like, and if you like it, if you like me, like all the albums,
Yeah.
you're going to hear a little bit of everything, in that. And so they became like my band, I guess. And so between that Dynasty and really Christmas of 1979 and when Unmasked came out, I got all the back catalog. And then so Unmasked was my first like buy this new Kiss record, and then from there. So.
You really bring up a valid point because, I mean, especially when you analyze like the albums that had preceded Dynasty, and we'll exclude the solo albums, you very much kind of knew what you were kind of getting. But when
Right.
you came on board, I mean, that was the start of a lot of transitions because, you had the more disco realm on Dynasty and then pop on Unmasked, conceptual albums with Elder.
And
Throughout it
the
all.
changes started too.
What's
Because
that?
the member changes, the band
True.
started
Eric Carr and Vinny, yeah.
right. I remember Peter Criss was I always like, as a kid, like I had drum sets and stuff, so I wanted to be a drummer. Every kid likes to be up there. So Peter Criss was my favorite member, because he was the drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being, 6 years old and hearing on the radio that I think it was on like the top 40 countdown. My dad was like listening to it on the weekend, and they mentioned Peter Criss had left Kiss, and so I'm in tears, of course.
Oh my
Yeah, because I'm a little kid.
Sure, yeah.
Then,
News like that hits.
right, and then you hear Eric Carr, and you're like, okay, never mind.
Fine.
We're good, But then Eric's first record being The Elder, it was very not, I think, obviously Freaky for the Night was when you first really heard Eric, like, and,
yeah.
and so yeah, it was, I think I've always said, my loyalty, and I really think this is the fact for a lot of Kiss fans that came in that era, because the Dynasty tour was the tour where all the 5-year-olds went, right? It was when they kind of become that. But if you were a fan at that age and you stayed, you missed the popularity of the band, especially in the States.
For sure.
No one cared about Kiss by the time I got really into it. Like Unmasked didn't do anything.
Yeah.
The Elder didn't do anything, but you're still, I love them. They're like my favorite band. And then
sure.
That loyalty, I think, stayed with you, because then through all of the changes, through the makeup coming off, through the member changes, you're like, okay, it's still my favorite band. And, my perception of them, and I think a lot of people who didn't come up through the 80s but see that era, they were not an unpopular band during that time. They were very popular. It's just there were so many Kisses at the time. There was that genre of music was so big at the time that they kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit sometimes, but they certainly held their own, I think, through that period, and were, it's always interesting. I see on like Facebook and stuff, there's this channel that posts like the charts from the 80s a lot of the times, and you look at like the singles charts, and there's very rarely any hard rock on there, but you look at the album charts, and it's like the top
dominated.
20. Right, because that was where people bought the albums at the time. And Kiss did, like I say, they held their own. And so it was, but I've always thought, like, if you became a fan when they weren't popular, you stuck with them because you had no choice, really. You just were,
Yeah, pretty much. And you know what? It's an interesting, like, varying case because, for fans that were there in, like, let's say 75, let's just say, example, my dad saw them on the Dress to Kill tour weeks before Kobo, take that fan. And, you feed it through. Yeah, Destroyer was a little bit of a, departure, but, Rock and Roll Over, Love Gun Alive too. I could see why Dynasty can sometimes be that turning point where it's like, okay, do I buy into this or do I go for Van Halen,
Right.
Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, all those bands? But I think that one of the things that I've come to sort of realize, talking to you and some other fans that hopped on during Dynasty is that you guys witnessed that change. And I think, therefore, like, appreciate those albums so much more because when you get to something like Elder, it's a love it or hate it kind of thing. And I'm like you, it's a loyalty thing.
Right.
Even though I'm a whatever generation fan that didn't live to see all that stuff, if it's got that logo, I'm there. Regardless of who, makeup, no makeup members, it's Kiss.
And you have a very different perception at 7 years old, right? I mean, you're still not, it's just, I like this band. And then they do something, you're like, okay, I like this now. That's fine. It's the Elder, whatever. They're great, or whatever. It was, I really did like and kind of grew with them. And I remember Creatures coming out and being like, whoa, this is different, And it's so funny how long things go when you're that age, right? A year when you're 7 or 8 years old is a lot different than like now, right?
Correct.
So from the Elder to Creatures, it felt like forever before the next record came out. And then you're just like, wow. And then from there, Lick It Up, Animalize, that kind of they got into that groove that was kind of like,
they locked it.
The vibe they're having now and the way they're playing. And I mean, again, it was just like I liked that type of music anyway. I certainly was into Motley Crue, Bon Jovi, all those bands too.
It all blends in.
But it blended together, but it became, it was like, and that's the thing for me. It's like, oh, well, Kiss is trying to be Bon Jovi or whatever. And I can see it from one perspective, but it's like, no, it just sounds like a Kiss record to me. Like, I don't think Crazy Nights sounds like Bon Jovi. It just has some of the same elements they brought into it.
It's funny. It certainly does, but I've always said Crazy Nights is Kiss doing Bon Jovi. Plain and simple.
Trying to, but still sounds like Kiss. They can't.
It still does. I mean, look. I mean, you take something like Crazy Nights, or hell, even like a deep cut like My Way.
Right.
It still has that DNA intact. Yeah. I think maybe like the Bon Jovi connection just only ties in because Bon Jovi was the big thing at the time.
Right. And then, of course, was with them and Kiss, and
it all blends in.
Yeah.
Now, would you say, like, you had your starting point and then your fandom just built, as time went on, and obviously, like you've said, you're loyal. Was that immense fandom the catalyst for starting your Kiss fan club, and how did that come together?
It was I did do a Kiss fan club. It was not a big one, really. I mean, it grew some, but like, honestly, the catalyst for that, you could thank Leonard Skinner, oddly enough.
Really?
So the week after Alive 3 came out, and yes, I mean, to answer your question, yes, there's the build up to it, and I'm still in 1992, 93, a very big Kiss fan. Loved them. I'm 18, 19 years old. I'm still, my brain is still not completely developed, but I'm still, and I'm standing in line at a Leonard Skinner show and waiting to get in, and I hear some people talking about Kiss Alive 3 because it had come out that week. And, being a Kiss fan, I turn around and just start talking to them and like, did you see they were on Arsenio and blah, 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 and so I start talking to this guy who a lot of people may even know him. It's a guy named Tony Leonard who goes by Dio in the metal community. He's very well known. He does the Almost Human podcast. I know a lot.
Oh yeah. What's his name? Dr. Fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Dio's like one of my best friends, and so he and I started talking and started putting and I'm like, and he had done some artwork because he's a really good artist. He draws he's very good at art, and he had done some stuff for a previous Kiss fanzine, and this is at the time, when it was just make a fanzine, right? There was a fan club. You were just making your own thing. And what bothered me so much with all the Kiss fan clubs, when you start looking at them, is it was all about the makeup. It was all about, and I'm like, we're kind of in a situation here where we're trying to promote an active band. Can we do a fan club that focuses on the band that exists today? Like, also the band I preferred, honestly. So, like, we started talking about, let's just do our own. We'll just start one. And so we did. And I'll never forget. I will not mention her name. It's one of the funniest stories because he was dating this girl that was not known for her intelligence, shall we say. She had a lot of things, and this is in the back in the day when you're typing it up and cutting and pasting, the photos into the paper you're going to get copy. And she's like, "How are you going to get the magazine on both sides? Are you going to glue the pages together?" And I was just like, I remember he's like, we're at his house, he's laying out everything. And she asked that question. I remember I could still see him like looking up at me, like, how's he going to answer this? And not like, and I was just like, no, they make copy machines that do two-sided.
Double-sided.
Right. And I just like, but in my brain or my mind, I'm going, oh my God, and I just remember he's over there like dying, laughing, trying not to like completely lose it. And, but anyway, so we started it and did it, put it together. And I remember taking an ad out in Goldmine magazine, and I had no money at the time. And, anybody that did this, you did not make any money doing fanzines. You spent money.
Yeah, I think if anything, you maybe lost it more with the resources involved putting it together, then the postage to get it out.
Getting them printed, getting them, doing all of that. Sometimes getting them printed more than once because they didn't turn out right. You had to like go back and get it done again or something. So it was a pain, honestly. But it was, we started it. We did a little bit, and there was a big fan club at the time. The New England Kiss Collectors Network was a big, and Karen and John Lesniewski ran it. They were out of Rhode Island and had actually started doing Kiss conventions. Like they were one of the first ones to do that. And this is like, I started our first fanzine, our first issue came out in September of 93. And by 95, they were in the middle of kind of getting a divorce and were breaking up, selling off their stuff. And they were basically dissolving their fan club. And she's like, do you want to take it over? Do you want to take our membership base over to kind of continue sitting? Because they liked what we were doing and stuff. And so we got a big influx of people from that. And right after that, like the next year was when Kiss did the reunion tour. And I remember, this is in January of 96, I hear something like there's something going on. And I wrote to Jerry Miller, who was the editor of Metal Edge. Who was always very kind about like sharing information and stuff. She was great. And I really, she's one of the people I miss a lot because she passed away a few years ago, but was very instrumental in all of these bands, like getting them out there and was really good to Kiss. But I wrote her and said like, hey, is this true? Is there really going to be, is this I'm hearing about a reunion tour. And she confirmed it. And it's like, yeah, it's happening, And this is before it was out to anybody. They weren't announced for the Grammys or anything. And I remember I had done some interviews and stuff with Bruce and had his phone number at the top of a fax he had sent. You know how they write little letters to you and send you,
Sure.
And I never called him. And I called and I got his answer machine and said, I've just heard this. I'm sorry. If you need me, I'm with you. They're not going to need a fan club. You might do something, whatever it is, I'm on your side. And so from that day to now, I've worked with him. So it turned into me doing the Union fan club.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah.
I mean, I bet you too, like that time frame that you had kind of explained, that period of like 93 when Alive 3 had come out, through the conventions, then leading up to the reunion. I mean, that was as tight as and close as you could get to the band before everything sort of took off and they became this sort of untouchable entity. And I was going to ask you, because obviously you have now Bruce Kulick's official archivist, but you've done some work with him, like, running the Union fan club. Was it just down to the fact that, he trusted you and like connected with you enough to trust you with that? And that's how you've established this working relationship?
I think so. And it was like, I'm the first one out of the gate going, I'm with you, because everybody else was losing their mind over the reunion tour.
Sure.
Like, very excited. And I'm more like, screw these guys. I can't believe they're doing this. What's wrong with you?
Fair, yeah.
And, I pissed a lot of people off too, including Gene at one point. as it turns out, it was more because I said, like, you know, it was his fault they did the reunion. He didn't want to do it. It was Paul that wanted to do it. He was like, you know, Gene was kind of more like, I'm not sure about this. They're going to screw us, you know. But anyway, so Gene was like, it wasn't me, you know, basically. But they were kind of to back up into like the 95 era, right after the Australia Japan tour at 95. I used to call like the KISS office and talk to whoever was there to like schedule interviews, things like that, find out what's going on, and call, and suddenly it's not the same people anymore working in their office. It was right at the time Jesse Hilson got booted out.
That's right.
So they have this guy, and if you've ever watched Gene Simmons' Family Jewels, he shows up on a guy named Angus.
Yeah.
He was their new business manager. And so I call, and he kind of like, oh, who are you? You know, and he's like, well, I've just taken over. And I was like, well, just so you know, you've got a hell of a job to do, and it's not going to be easy. And if you ever need anything, call me. Like, I know stuff about the band. If you need stuff, and from that day, he did. Like, I was the guy that they would call when they needed stuff. And I remember, like, weird things like, here's our spreadsheet of who's getting paid royalties and what songs were on what album. Are they right? No, they're not. You know,
oh my God,
like, Million to One was not on Gene's solo record. Things like, I mean, it was bad. Like, you know,
yikes.
when Vinnie Vincent sued him for the, you know, there were a bunch of questions and stuff about that they were asking me, like, was he ever on a KISS record in makeup? He's alleging he was, and I'm like, well, there was this version of Lick It Up that came out, but not really. You know, and it you know, it's funny to like later hear, oh yeah, that went to the Supreme Court, you know, and I'm like, my evidence may have been, you know, who knows? It's something
Jeez.
and just weird questions like, I remember during the reunion when they were doing rehearsals, Angus calls because Gene would call him, and he would just be like, and he calls, he goes, do you, and I'm at work, and he says, do you have the lyrics to Calling Dr. Love? They're rehearsing and they need them. And of course, your brain as a fan goes, why are you calling me for this? Don't you have this somewhere? But this is kind of early internet and stuff, and, you know, and I don't even think I had internet at work at the time. So, because this was like early 96, and I'm on my, you know, work computer typing out the lyrics to Calling Dr. Love and sending them to him, who he sends to Gene by fax, who then they're rehearsing with those lyrics. And it was just a weird, it's just so bizarre. And like,
I mean, I'm also reminded too, totally like off context, but Gene is notorious for just flubbing lyrics in general, and he still did it up till the end of the road. So.
Wasn't my fault. I typed them right, I promise you. You know,
so you're not to blame for that.
I don't think so anyway. I'm pretty sure I got it right. But you know, and then I remember going home, and the KISS pack at the time had all the lyrics on the site. And so I did an Excel spreadsheet of here's all the songs and here's the hyperlink to the lyrics. So if you ever need this, just use this, and you don't have to call me in the middle of the day or whatever. And
sure.
So little things like that I just kind of help out with. And so, but with Bruce, I mean, the union thing, I think, like I said, happened because I was the first one and the one to kind of be like, I'll do it, you know, and it just evolved from there. And then
sure,
the union didn't last very long, obviously, but
yes,
we formed I don't know, we always, he's kind of like an older brother to me in some ways. I mean, he's become like family to me now.
Sure, yeah.
And in fact, the reason I'm wearing this shirt today, I saw Union in 2000 on their last tour, and he had been to, it was in Baltimore, so he had been to the Paul Reed Smith like guitar factory that day. And so I was there and hanging out with Brent and Jamie, and then John and Bruce had gone to see Paul Reed Smith. And when they get back, Bruce is like, "Oh, you got skinny because I lost some weight." And he was wearing this shirt, and he goes in the back and he pulls it off, and he comes out and says, "Here, this will look good on you. You take this," you know. And so he's like, I was at my mom's house in New York, and I had it, and I grabbed it there. And so I like to pretend that I think this shirt's actually from like the mid 90s, but I was like,
I was about to say, maybe over 25 years later.
Yeah, you know, maybe this was there when they were recording something, or it was in the room when they did, you know, I don't know.
Shit, that is hardcore, dude.
I dug it out today to wear it in honor of Bruce. literally giving me the shirt off his back in 2000.
I'm honored to see it, dude. It looks good on you.
It's not been worn very much since then because it's not really, honestly, I'm hot as hell in this thing. It's all polyester, so it's like,
Oh God,
it's a Levi's Silver Tab shirt. If you remember that brand, that's how old this thing is.
I mean, I was born in '97, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think this was actually like early '90s. So anyway, but he was always just such a good guy and so easy to work with. And then
Sure.
Union kind of fell apart, and he went on to do the Grand Funk thing, which of course for a couple of years, Audio Dog and stuff. So he worked with other people. It wasn't me, he didn't really have a fan club at that time. And then,
just had like a little circle of people that he can trust.
Right. And then he'd start doing expos and stuff. And if he did one around here, we'd go help him at it, at his table and stuff. And
Yeah.
then it became, oh yes, do this ad, do these things. So especially in the era of more modern, the social media and stuff where you were putting merchandise together.
Yeah.
The box that the bobblehead came in, I designed,
This one here.
But, so it becomes like, hey, I need this. Can you do it? And so that's
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome that you have sustained that great relationship.
Yeah.
One of the things that, because when we had first started communicating, you had reached out to me and we were kind of going back and forth. And I think this is something that a lot of the viewers out there watching are going to find interesting. Since you are his archivist, and for those that follow Bruce on social media, anytime he does like the anniversary videos for certain albums and, pertaining to his era within Kiss, I sometimes see a little case or rack of cassettes in his possession. What can you share about those recordings that he has that you were saying that maybe could see the light of day? Sure. Please go in detail.
Let me go. I'll tell you, again, his era is my era of the band as far as being my favorite era. I love every era and everything they did, really.
Sure.
That era. And so 2018, he's going through, they had moved and it wasn't long after they moved into the new house, but he's going through stuff and kind of organizing. And honestly, and he's been very honest about this. There was a period where Bruce was kind of like, I don't want to think about Kiss. It was too much. It was very, because, it wasn't pleasant to go through what he went through, with what he and Eric went through, and so understandably, it took a while for him to be like, to embrace it back. And so he started to do that and started to kind of go through his stuff and get a feel for it. And he sends me this photograph. And it's like, is there anything interesting here? And it's a photo of a box of tapes. And they say like Denver, 1986. And I'm looking and I'm going, those are soundboards of shows that we don't have. Because at first I thought like, these are like fan tapes that he's got. And some of them were. Some of them were like, some fan gave him a copy of Tokyo 88 or whatever. But there were others that I didn't recognize, and I was like, I'm like immediately writing back, yes, put those in the mail right now. We have to get these like preserved because they're cassette tapes, and they were.
Yeah.
And so he sends me a couple boxes of tapes, and I'm just like going through them, and it was both studio stuff and, live stuff. I'm more of a live person. Like, to me, the live shows were what I was really excited to see.
Sure.
The studio stuff, I know a lot of people are like into the demos and stuff, and I was too, but it was like, okay, what do we start with, And the first one, and it was funny, you'd pull the tape out, and you'd see it had been like, so also I had to go on eBay and like buy a cassette tape because I didn't have one, plug it into everything so I could capture everything. And you'd open and you'd see that like, a little bit of the tape had been listened to and the rest probably never had. Because they'd run a board tape, they'd listen to it, see how things were sounding and throw it in a box.
Yeah, and that was it. They're like, okay, we got what we need out of it. That's it.
So as I start going through it, I'm literally the first person to ever hear this recording. Like some of it, And the first one I pull out, I put in, I start playing it, and it starts with Eric Carr solos in Asylum from Glen Falls, 1985. starts with Eric Carr solo, because not all the time, you know, they didn't always start right at the beginning, or there'd be
Sure.
the Poughkeepsie that came out off the soundboard. There's
Mark St. John show.
Right, because there's no. I think was it Young and Wasted is either not there or is partial.
So Young and Wasted, it like starts, but then you hear like a weird like transition to the solo, and I'm guessing that's where the tape got flipped or something like that. Yeah.
And there was an auto reverse at this time, so you have the guy literally grabbing it, stopping it, flipping it over, because usually it's a lot of times the flip is like, if it's a 90-minute tape, like 42 minutes in or something, you know. So, but he's got to be mindful of that to do it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I pull this out. It's you know, Eric solo, and I'm listening to it, and they play Won't Get Fooled Again. And I'm like, holy shit, I've just heard a soundboard of Won't Get Fooled Again, you know. Yeah. And so that goes into what you were talking about, the anniversary videos. When he was doing this, this is 2020, so there's no one's doing anything except, you know, my job was remote anyway, so I'm working just as hard as ever. But Bruce is often not doing anything, so he's always sending, "Oh, let's do this video. Let's do this." You know, it was a very busy year. So we started talking about the Asylum tour, and he did one in the beginning of the year about like the album. And then I'm like, well, look, the tour started November 29th. What if we took Won't Get Fooled Again? Because we had kind of talked about it would be great to get some of this stuff out, but there's, you know, it's not really his to put out, right?
There's the legalities behind it.
It's not like you're going to give it to bootleggers, and there's also some value in it because, like, you know, if somebody wants it, he still owns it, even though it's not. He can't release it. Or,
it's down to the copyrights and everything.
So I'm like, well, why don't we just throw Won't Get Fooled Again is the one everybody's wanted to hear. Let's give that as the anniversary thing. And so,
yeah, I remember watching that and thinking, holy shit, you know?
Right. I edited the video was from Detroit and Madison Square Garden. I took 2 shows and then kind of, you know, so it's just the audience film.
Yeah.
And then edited it to this soundboard from San Bernardino, which is the show that we use for that. You know, it was like, let's give some people something really cool. And with it. And Paul Stanley like immediately retweeted it when it came out, and so it got all these. Like I told him, I'm like, when you put this out, it's going to be the most viewed thing.
It's going to start a forest fire,
and it did. And you know, and then I think the only one after that, the one that got the most was the Bob Kulick tribute he did, which was brilliant. Like he put such a good tribute together for Bob. But like, anyway, that was kind of, and so. As far as what's there and what we'd like to come out, you know, both Bruce and I would love for people to hear this stuff. It's just a matter of, you know, and I would say, you know, when they get to these anniversary box sets, whether Kiss has something already in the vaults, in the Pop House wad of stuff they got, you know, maybe. I know he's let them know to some extent. I think people know he's let people know, like, okay, I have this stuff if you're interested in it. So
I guess it sounds like it would have to be a deal where either he, and again, with a lot of like the music business behind the scenes stuff, I don't know if it would be a case of him giving tapes to Universal / Gene and Paul, or they can work out some type of agreement. But to understand,
more through Pop House now, not through
correct Pop House. But like, I guess like, how wide and varied would you say this archive is? I mean, is it from when he joined in '84 up to like '95? I mean, what
a little bit before and up through. So I mean, because there were a few tapes of stuff they had given him to learn the Kiss songs when he joined, and one of the ones I was very excited to see in there until I listened to it was Wembley 1980. And I was like, oh my God, there's a soundboard of Wembley 80 because that show. And then I put it on and it's just a vinyl rip of the Egos at Stake.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, well, still cool, but, you know,
sure.
It is, you know. So, it's a good archive in the sense that, you know, certainly if they were doing the anniversary editions, and again, we don't know what they have already and what they don't, but certain things I think he may have that would, like, one of the things I really like that I would love to get out there is the original version of Prisoner of Love from Hot in the Shade, and he's talking about it that it had a much different sound before Gene turned it into like the shuffle.
Yeah,
And when you hear the original, you're like, this is a much better song. In fact, I told him when you're doing the cruise, you should do that version of it on the cruise and just
right, yeah.
Like, no, I'm not doing that. So at Planar Americans, I'm gonna have to learn it again. But anyway, it was there's some cool stuff studio wise. Again, what do they have? What do they don't? What they don't have, I don't know. And then live stuff, there is. You know, I would love to see it. There's some great revenge stuff for sure from that tour because by that time, also, you know, recording technology, the tape deck they had for the revenge tour was obviously an auto reverse. The shows are like complete. They're very good, and there's several from the first few shows. And he shared, you know, the photos of like the ones from Alive 3. He has all 3 shows from
Yeah.
Alive 3. So, and pretty much, you know, recorded with the audience on them, you know.
And now those Alive 3 shows, just to clarify, those are just stereo soundboard mixes.
Yeah, I believe, like I say, the audience is in there, so it is the soundboard mix, but obviously they were running more mics that night than what a normal.
Well, true, and also considering that Eddie Kramer was on board doing multi-track work as well.
Right, and so the multi-tracks, I'm sure, exist somewhere and would be probably what they would use.
Oh, for sure. I mean, look, they pulled the stops with Alive. I mean, and personally too, like I think, and I also wanted to touch on this real quick. San Antonio off the soundboard. Was that something, and I think we may have talked about this before I hit the record button, was that something that was in Kiss's vaults, or was that something that he knew of?
That was Kiss. We had no idea.
Okay.
I mean, we have shows from around that time, you know, from the early part of the tour. I think Houston is one of the ones we had.
Okay.
But, so it's interesting, you know, and that's the thing. I don't know how many recordings were done. Did they run one every night and he just happened to grab some because like I want to see how I'm sounding, because they kind of go through the whole Asylum tour. There's a lot from that tour. There's a lot from Hot in the Shade, or several from Hot in the Shade. There's several from Revenge, and so
wait,
not every show, you know.
But we're talking soundboards.
Yeah.
Okay, that was going to be my $1 million question. Is there a Hot in the Shade soundboard? Because the only thing that we have that's soundboard are the Detroit Pro Shots, and that's it. You know, that's a tour that is very, I feel, underrepresented in terms of what's out in the circles. So
I would agree, and I would say yes and no, because there is, but it would have to be done kind of like they did with the Creatures box, where they took
piece by piece
shows, because the Hot and Shade shows were really long, and
2 hours.
Guy was not great at flipping the tape over, so you get up to it, cuts off, and then it'll start in like right before the encores or something. So there's pieces kind of missing, but between all of them, yes, there is at least one complete show, and then pieces of other ones. Sure, there could be, and you know, I would love that would be awesome, because that's the first tour I actually got to see them live on.
Oh, cool!
And I would very much like to see a live version.
I don't know how big of a market it would be for there to be a Hot in the Shade box, but if they did like a special off the soundboard and do the select, just like they did with the Creatures, even though those Creature shows have leaked, you know, in their entirety, whatever, to do a prime curation in running order of the show, I think that would satisfy a lot of fans.
I do too. And we've talked about, you know, again, I would love it. He would love it. It's just, and again, what do they have? They may have a board tape that's complete. Who knows? Or they have some of the same things. Because like I say, if they were running them every night, maybe like that San Antonio came from somewhere, you know. And
I know I told you my theory. My guess is because those Creature soundboards were a massive surprise. No one knew. I mean, before those, they just simply did not exist. The only thing maybe we had was Rio, but that's only as good as it could possibly get. You know, probably a sound guy that was running tapes, either at the band's request or just to have for records, you know, whatever. You know, probably just has an arsenal, and that's why we have those. That's why probably we have that's why like we have the sound effects,
Right.
you know, from that they would run throughout the show. It's like, you know, someone within the crew must have had that kind of stuff.
And you know, maybe found them in a box years later too, like Bruce did. You know,
Sure, it's very much one of those cases.
Right.
But
He moved from New York to LA. Those moved with him. Who knows? You know, but there's work tapes. There's some stuff. There is stuff that's cool from Hot in the Shade that studio wise, I think that people would love to hear or be interested.
Sure.
In. Like, you know, one of the things that's really well known about that record is it's a lot of demos anyway.
It's polished demos, yeah.
Sometimes when you're listening to the demo, you're like, oh yeah, this is pretty much the song. You know, and other times there's Paul's stuff tends to be a little more not. He definitely fixed his stuff. Where and then a lot of it came out on Gene's Vault.
True.
I remember going through those tapes and hearing "I Walk Alone" with Gene on vocals and being like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah.
And then it's on his vault, so you know clearly he had copies of it too.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it exists from a fan perspective. You know, I would love to see it come out or whatever anybody's got. From a Bruce's friend perspective, I'd love to see him get paid for it and get out.
Fair. You know what? That's absolutely fair. But you know what? And I think too, I think the reason why, like, between that Off the Soundboard show as well as the box sets for Dressed to Kill and Alive, I'm guessing maybe there's more of a deeper pocket in the direct-to-consumer route.
Sure.
So if that's the case, then maybe that'll be the clause as to when we'll start getting a lot more stuff from his era, which would be awesome.
The Asylum one did really well, from what I understand.
It's sold out on Kiss Online.
But then there's the question of, do we want another one? You know, but it didn't have Won't Get Fooled Again on it. And
fair. Yeah.
There's two more that you haven't heard, and there's one more that's half the song because it got cut off in the middle of the tape. But like, you know, and there's some other stuff that's kind of cool that is more collector-y stuff, like where he ran a recorder at rehearsals, just a tape recorder when they were rehearsing the Asylum tour. And so you hear Eric Carr singing Any Way You Slice It. You hear Mountain. There's one that's a trio recording because Paul had pulled a muscle and was missing some of the rehearsals, so the other three guys kept rehearsing. And you hear Gene trying to do Paul's raps, but making fun of Paul and stuff. You know, all right, people, and it's hysterical because you hear Gene doing it, and then she did this, and Eric hits a and then she did this, and now we're gonna do, you know, it's really funny listening to it. So
look, something like that would probably never pass anyone. Yeah. But I would kill to hear that.
I mean, you know, if they put out that Davenport show with the warts and all that they did on that Alive box set, I don't know that we wouldn't hear, you know, this is certainly no more, it's not offensive.
You know, I think maybe the only redeeming quality they saw in that Davenport show was the fact that it was a multi-track.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, how many times do they multi-track record a show? Not many. Yeah. So I think Davenport was special in its right to have that come out regardless of Paul's vocal performance. That's all.
It also shows, like, here's why we had to fix this. Like,
that's fair. That is fair. Yeah, I mean,
hopefully was not that. I mean, that was just really solid, but you know.
Well, Wildwood, I thought was, first off, I was so excited for Wildwood because where I'm at in South Jersey, Wildwood's like an hour away. Like, that is, like, it's cool to have a cool home state kind of connection, but the vocals, I think they just piped in the overdubs,
right?
Because the bed track is taken from Wildwood. Most of it of Kiss Alive is from Wildwood, not a lick from Detroit. I feel
there are a few pieces where I feel like it is the real vocal.
There's some, yes, there's some.
That's a little bit different. Maybe they were just pretty good that night, and they just fixed pieces of it rather than really.
Yeah, I still, as of recording this, I still have to write my review of the Alive box, and I got a lot to say about it. I mean, I love it for what we have, but I got some points to bring up.
And Harry Kubo was great too, even if it's not perfect. It's, you know.
Look, even if Kobo was a challenge, like, I think because everyone hypes up Kiss Alive being done at Kobo, I think they recorded that show, heard it, and go, oh,
Yeah, we don't have this.
this is gonna be a bit of a different animal. So
Right.
I think, and who to call it hype, just the fact that it was a sold out 12,000 seat show,
Right.
it helps to hype it up a little. But regardless of the fact that if Not a Lick from Detroit was included on Kiss Alive, it's still a phenomenal show.
Right.
Like for me, like I hear it and I'm like, that's perfect. Why did Gene have to re-record his vocals on You Wanted the Best?
Right.
But that's another story.
Exactly. And I think, I remember when Alive 3 came out, or after, when Eric Singer was talking about it, he's like, they're bootlegs that are better than Alive 3 to me, because the band was great. Like, there's not.
Oh, absolutely.
But to be fair, on the Alive 3 recordings, and you hear it on that Detroit video, which is the same recording as the board audio, the mics are dropping out. Like, they're singing, but it's not being picked up. Like, the mic was dead, and Paul's singing full voice, but you kind of hear it because another mic is picking
the
it up.
ambiance, yeah.
Right, you're not. So it was some technical issues, I think, that had to be, but definitely the Revenge tour and the Revenge club dates and stuff like that. Band was untouchable.
Yeah,
live.
they were tight as hell. Yeah, they were tight.
And everything. I mean, you might fix a thing here or there, but more or less, it was spot on for that.
Yeah.
So, and going back to the Bruce stuff, and yes, the recently he did the Animalize live. I think it was last year. He put a little thing out. He had the original board audio
from Detroit.
And that's from one of our tapes, and I'm the one that painstakingly synced that up because it's not.
Yeah.
It's not at the same speed as what they showed on Animalize and stuff.
Sure, yeah.
Like, okay, we have to do this at 101.2% to get it match. It was
just to get it perfect.
Yeah, but he put those out. I think we did one more with All Night from like El Paso. We had a video from that when he got some photos for Asylum, and we put them together in like a little slideshow.
Hell yeah!
He's throwing some stuff out there, and it would be great. As a fan, and I think going back to that Alive set and the fact that we are happy to get a show where Paul sounds like he's dying on, kind of, which is pretty much every show from 2010 forward. To get that kind of show is like, and we're happy to have it. I think does show and has probably proven to them there's a market for stuff, and
there definitely is. And maybe, like I said, going direct to consumer, having it be only on Kiss Online, they're learning that. But also that's the beauty of the internet, because you can determine your marketplace. You don't have to do the corporate, retail record store type of deal. But since we're talking about, releases, we're going to talk about some vinyl right now, because you have had a hand in some projects. And the first one that kind of leads into some of the Bruce stuff is this version of Eric Carr's Rockology. Now, this copy that I'm holding up right here is the version that Tom Shannon did over at the Rockologist. How did you connect with Tom to have a hand in this project?
So that actually started with Tom had done a version of BK3. Bruce had some of the red vinyl left over, and he's like, well, let's do a special edition. I think Tom did a version of the black vinyl first. That was very limited, that I was not involved in. And then when Bruce is like, well, I have these red ones, do you want to do something with those? And then Bruce was like, and you need to use my guy for the stuff, right? So we wanted to make it special. Tom German did all of the original work on the vinyl or the CD and layout. So that is he did the original package, but then we wanted to take it and expand on it. So Tom, got in touch with me, and one thing I got to say with Tom, he was always great with, like, I don't think I ever did anything where he didn't just say, yep, that's great, let's do it. Like, there was no, like, back and forth of, like, oh, it would be like this or whatever. We talked very little about it. Like, what do you want, And then it became, this red, the BK3 red that came out. We had like the OB design that we did.
Yeah.
And one of the great things about the BK3 project is when Bruce did his photo session with Niels Lozauer, he got all of the photos. So he has the rights to all the photos that were taken. And
yeah,
something people probably may not realize when you're dealing with vinyl or any commercial printing is the photos have to be like 3 times bigger than what actually
correct. Yeah.
So you need the high res stuff. You can't go with like a small photo. So that led to like this was the insert we did for that. And obviously this photo we had, big quality. But then the inside, which is like this collage of different BK3 related stuff.
That's cool.
The reason why some of the photos aren't huge is because they were as big as I could use them. Like they're full size, but they're not when they're smaller. But it was like, here's the BK3 like dump of all the things. And Bruce had like handwritten lyrics he had and some other stuff. And we put this collage together. There's a photo I just saw of like Nick singing in the studio.
Yeah.
And Tom wanted to do, we did a little merch insert and we did these little collector cards that we did for them and stuff. So, I mean, Tom's thing was like, I want to do like baseball cards, and every release we do will have one in it,
Sure.
So the BK3 was it. So that package did really well. And so when it kind of came time to do Rockology, I knew Loretta, Eric's sister, and everything, and she was great to work with. She gave me a lot of photos, and at the time, I'll be honest, you'll notice in that package there are no makeup photos of Eric at all. So, does that have the insert in it?
Yeah. Let's see. I think my copy is just like the bare bones, like standard version.
Right.
The only thing that's makeup is just the merch.
Right. That was the merch sheet that they did, but we didn't. We purposely in like the book and stuff stayed away from makeup photos, but all of those came from Loretta, a lot of them. And the photo in the center there of Eric up on the drums in the middle was one that was in a Kiss book, the Kiss in Classified book from Sweden, and Mats Masfjord, I believe I'm saying that right, took that photo in Richmond, Virginia, which ironically was like just a few days before I saw my first Kiss show.
Oh, hell yeah.
I had seen that photo in the book, and I'm like, I love this photo. And so as soon as I got this project, I'm like, we have to use that picture.
You got to use it, yeah.
And then the photo on the front we licensed on the front of the insert we licensed from Niels Lozauer, because I really like that shot. It's an alternate from when he did his drum poster.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then, it was the first project because BK3, I'm working within the foundation of what Tom German originally did. Like, I have to kind of keep it in that theme, right?
Yeah.
So this one was like fully mine to do from the beginning, art direction.
Really?
And so I was like, I don't want to use makeup. I don't want to make it look like a Kiss solo record. My whole thought of was, the only guiding thought I had was, if Eric Carr was alive, what could I do to make him proud? And what could I do to be like, this is you as in your material being presented to the world in a solo vet? Because I'll be honest, the original CD that came out, I thought the art was terrible on, and
it's funny. I know what you're talking about because and just on a personal note, Rockology is one of my favorite Kiss solo releases, and I remember I got the CD version when I was a kid for Christmas one year, just because it was Eric Carr, plain and simple. And then like listening to it, like it's one that I grew up with. The song Tiara is one of my favorites. Eyes of Love. Too Cool for School. Like I love those songs.
Great song too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I knew of Chris Hoffman, who does such amazing work. And so again, it was like, can we get him to do the cover? Like, would you pay, and again, to Tom's credit, it was, let's make something good first and figure out the money later, and Chris, I mean, that portrait is unbelievable. And
it's wonderful.
It was one that, and it's based on a photo that was in the Crazy Nights tour book, because I was like, I wanted to be from that era because that was when the music came from. So the idea was this divine should be to the era that the music was all recorded between Crazy Nights and Hot in the Shade.
Yeah.
So, and then I had him draw the fox, the little fox pendant was my idea to like, let's tie the makeup in a subtle way. And then, of course, that led to how the title got put on and kind of highlighting it and stuff. But
yeah,
when we got that art, I'm like, okay, we're done with the cover kind of. And then the back cover was one of those, when I saw it, I'm like, I have to use this picture. It's from Eric's last show. Yeah. And that's like, it was, taken with his roadies, like little 35 millimeter camera. And that date, I don't know if you remember or if you've seen, back in the day, you would get photos with the date printed on them.
Oh yeah. There's like old photos of me as a toddler with that same little date code there. Yeah.
And so I'm like, there are other photos for sure, but this is Eric at Madison Square Garden at his last concert.
Yeah.
We have to use this. And so it was such a cool project from beginning to end to get to work on it and to be, and I hope I would hope he would be proud of it. And honestly, I think it stands better than all of the ones that they've done since with the makeup stuff. I feel like that's just a way to get it in there, but I mean, I don't personally think it connects to it.
Now, obviously, because I know exactly what you're talking about, because I think Culture Factory has been doing all of the versions of Rockology now. That goes for the Splatter 2 LP version for Record Store Day. There was a picture disc done, and then just this year they did a liquid-filled one.
Right.
Is it down to like a licensing agreement as to how they got a hold of the label? Because Tom had originally had done this. So, like, is it just a case of setting a price on whoever owns the masters and that's it? Or how does that work?
Owned by Loretta, really. So she has the right to put it out.
Okay, so it's within the family, basically. Right,
it's within the family who owns it, and then Bruce is kind of aside to it too because he co-produced it and he plays on it, so he gets some, has some input to it. But like as far as the deals and stuff, that's pretty much Loretta. And doing these independent releases is really hard.
What? It's I can imagine, and not to cut you off because I was thinking about it. An associate of mine that I had done some work with had passed away just recently, and he was in a band and they did original work only on CD. And I was thinking to myself, it would be a nice tribute to do something on vinyl. And then I immediately thought of something like this, and I'm wondering, I'm like, how much of a hell is it to get it off the ground?
And honestly, if you own it and you have the rights to it, it's not hell from that perspective. It's just the hell is getting all these boxes in your garage that you didn't have to ship out to people. And, there's no distributor for that. Like Tom, I know worked, and anybody that does it, like anybody that puts these things out, it is not a money-making venture. It is a true love of, for the passion and the love of getting it out there. And
that and also the investment of getting the product pressed.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah. And, we were very adamant, especially with, I know with Audio Dog, which we did later through Craig Lindsley, we were like, we are not pre-ordering these because of several pre-orders that may have taken forever and people get a little sour on that. We were like, we're going to have it. It's going to be ready and basically shipped by the time we put up that we've got it available.
So, like, basically, once you put it up for grabs, you had the product in your hands.
Either had it, I think it was being shipped to Craig when we got it. Yeah, and that came up because Tom kind of got out of the stuff because again, it's really hard, and he was great to work with. But then when again, we wanted to do a picture disc of Rockology, and Loretta got in touch with Craig Lindsley, who put that out. That was this one that came out. This is the back of it. But
that's cool.
I had this Mott's photo that I'm like, I have to use that as the
back.
But and what more perfect like pressing for picture disc than this photo?
That's perfect. Yeah. That looks sharp.
And then we did the kind of flipping Eric over here, but so I worked with Craig to do this version of it and redo the cover and stuff to get it for just a picture disc. And then he, wanted to do this one with Bruce. So we did Audio Dog. And again, we were just like, but that's a lot of upfront getting all that done. and deciding how many did we do, what colors are they going to be, and all of that, So this
and Audio Dog sold out quick, did it?
It sold out quicker than I even thought it would, and I was like, well, we should have made more. But
I think I looked on Discogs. Last copy sold for what? Just over $100?
Probably, yeah.
Something like that. Also comes with a little 7-inch as well.
Yeah, that one was because we couldn't fit there. We had a couple of extra songs, and we couldn't fit them on the vinyl without really screwing with the sound. So I was like, we do a little bonus 7-inch, and again, speaking to these guys that are willing to just be like, yep, let's do it. It'll cost more, but let's make it a cool product. And it let us work, some of the original art from the CD into the 7-inch sleeve and stuff. But this was, my vision of what the CD should have always looked like. I never liked it was cut and had the name
sideways. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't do that, obviously, or I would be happy with it. But then, this was a full reconstruct of it. It was not taking the CD. There was no scan or whatever. This was taking the original art.
Wow.
And Bruce got a good, that and redoing a lot of that. And then the back cover, same thing, is a complete redo. We got the original negatives from Glenn LaFerman before he passed. He sadly passed away recently. And, redid it. And one of the things I'm very proud of on that is the side B and side K.
That's cool.
So
that
was my idea, and Bruce was like, I don't know. And then Lisa,
come on now.
Lisa's like, I think it's kind of cool. I like that idea, So she thankfully got him to agree. And I don't think it was out yet. I don't think ours was out yet. It might have come out, but right after that, Cher did a greatest hits, and it's a 2 LP, and it's side C, H, E, and R. It came out that way, and I was like, see, Bruce, it was a good idea. Cher can do it. You can do it.
Hell, I think when Guns N' Roses did the remastered Appetite for Destruction, side G, side N, side R.
Yeah.
Lends itself.
Why not? And have a little fun with it. But yeah, that one, again, those guys were great to work with. And I'm glad we got it out there and got this music out there for people to hear, and to see again.
So I will tell you, Michael, when I saw the news of this getting announced, I more or less bought this, having not listened to Audio Dog before.
Right.
But I kind of bought it out of necessity because, I'm a Kiss collector. Right. Even if it's not Kiss itself, it's within the vein. I have to have it. This is probably one of, if not my all-time favorite Kiss solo release. Awesome. Because when I listen to this, I'm like, this exists within a wavelength of Revenge and Carnival of Souls. Sure, I listened to Strange to Me, and I'm thinking to myself, how did this oozes classic Kiss, and even Change Is Coming has that sort of grungy, the Alice in Chains kind of harmonies. It's crazy. One thing I want to ask you real quick, and it's funny because when I would listen to this, my ears perked up. Wasn't there an unauthorized Kiss video that used audio from this album or alternate versions?
Some of it, yeah. I think Monster Island, I think for sure was used on one of it. And I think it was unauthorized Kiss-wise, but I don't think it was unauthorized. That was done without, I think Bruce made a deal, or, it wasn't I don't think they used it without him knowing about it, I will say.
Yeah, because I remember I had it was on a DVD or something like that. And I'm here, and I always just remember there was a couple of instrumental bits that I liked that kind of perked my ears. And I'm listening to this, and I'm like, wait a second, this is piecing the puzzle, kind of. It was interesting.
I remember Change Is Coming was one of the ones I had it playing, and I had it up so loud I had this bass sitting on my speaker, and the song kicks in, and I hear this huge crash because the speaker had vibrated it off and broken the bass. It had all these little glass beads in it. They're going everywhere, and I'm just like, that was pretty rock and roll. That was cool.
It's you're looking at it, and you're like, all right, that's actually really cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. It hit just at the right time. But yeah, that one is a really good solo record. You're right. A lot of that material was in that exact period.
In that vein, yeah. For anyone that has not listened to this, you really owe it to yourself. You really do. Are there
I have
any?
to say very quickly, the guy that did the cover art, if you're listening, Martin, I'm very sorry. I'm the one that misspelled your name in the credits. It's like an A on the inner sleeve. I got it right. I was so upset after I found out because I didn't know the name, but really, but it was in the CD and I just missed it. So I apologize for that. That was my bad, not Bruce.
Were there any plans, or are there any plans for Transformer to get a vinyl pressing?
Yes, is all I can say. Yes, there are.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think in 2026 you'll see it. Hopefully, yeah.
Well, so, that actually transitions. That transitions into my last question. Are there any projects that you're currently working on that will see the light of day in 2026? Is it just that, or is there any more on the horizon? Anything that you're able to share? You don't have to go too crazy.
Not right now. I'll be honest. I don't know what we've got going on. I know Bruce is working on his autobiography. One of the things that's really cool about that, he had started it back in like 2000 era, right around there, 2000, 2001. And he was getting it working with a guy who was interviewing people other than him. And, you know, the guy interviewed like Bob and Bruce's parents and stuff. And we have all of those recordings of people whose voices aren't there anymore, right? We can't talk to them anymore. They're gone. And so, and then also interviewing Bruce back then, and 25 years have gone by. So I'm sure there's probably some things he may have talked about in that maybe he didn't remember to do. So he's going through a lot of that and working on it, and we'll be putting that out. At the time he was going to put it out, the book, the Motley Crue book had just come out. And so the publisher we want this scandalous, filthy book. And that's not my story. I'm sorry, I can't give you that, you know. And so there wasn't as much interest from a publisher standpoint. But now with self-publishing, you know, so
it's an easy thing.
To that, the only project that I've got that I know of, Bruce's wife, Lisa, has her first novel is coming out.
Nice.
And I think I can say that, and it may even be out by the time this airs. And she, I helped do the cover for that, but she is a writer and is a very talented person. I think one of the greatest things of my whole friendship with Bruce was being able to, you know, meet her for the first time and go, yeah, he needs to marry her now. She's the one. Like, I remember saying that, like, when we first met her, we were like, yeah, she's the one. You know, the first.
That's awesome.
That was actually in 2010 when BK3 was out. But anyway, she's got that. And the other thing I'm working on, she has a big birthday coming up, and we're doing all the invitations and stuff for that.
Cool.
Doing a Wizard of Oz themed, and so I've helped her put some of that stuff together. And so,
hell yeah.
They're kind of like, you know, it's like family. You do things. I'm sure Bruce will have, and by the time this airs, you'll have seen a Christmas video for the year. They always do a little thing like that. And they just are such a great, they're just such great people. And Bruce in particular, like, you know, he's exactly how you know him as. Like, if you've seen anything, like, he's just a decent guy. He's the most sane member of KISS, which granted is not sane, but you know, by a long shot, I would say. But yeah,
definitely, I think the most like down to earth, humble, you know, the most approachable.
The other thing I have to say about him too is how honorable he is with, like, he won't do anything without the person getting paid. Like, you know, Glenn Furman is an example, and all of these people, it's like he wants to make sure everybody gets taken care of. All the guys that played on Audio Dog got money for the, you know, for the vinyl release. He's not gonna do, even though there are times he's done things that he didn't have to do, but he does it because it's the right thing. And that is Bruce's like guiding thing all the time is it the right thing to do? And that is such a great type of person to be able to work with.
In this business where a lot of people do get gypped, for lack of a better term, what he does and what you just explained is extremely commendable. Yeah, it truly is.
And the kind of person that makes you want to be a part of it.
Yeah. I mean, hell, you guys networked as far back as 95, 96.
Yeah.
30 years later, here you are.
Here we are. And I will share one last thing. When we were talking about the KISS office and stuff, one time, this is just for all the vinyl people. Angus was like, "Do you want anything?" You know, and I'm like, "Have y'all got any vinyl laying around the office?" Because this is like mid '90s, so that
Sure.
was, and he's like, "I'll see what we've got," and he sends me this envelope, and it has a couple of like random 45s from like Europe from the solo albums and stuff. Nothing, you know, like just regular pressings.
Okay.
And then this is in there, and this is the acetate for Flaming Youth, the original.
What?
Yeah, if you look, it's like the little. So it's on a metal plate. It's not a record, and that was in the little package he sent.
Dude.
Yeah, that was one of those like holy crap moments.
And we're wrapping this up on that note, like, dude.
Yeah, that was so that's a nice little. That was probably the rarest thing I ever got from the KISS group, I guess. But yeah.
Now, was that just like something like, I guess, just lying around? I mean, like, and also, have you listened to it? And is there any difference to the final version on Destroyer?
It is this is what was used to press the 7-inch single.
Oh, okay.
The actual master thing that they put on and used to cut so that's the so it's
is it stereo or mono?
Stereo.
Okay.
I believe. Right. I don't know, honestly. I listened to it once and then never did again.
Listen, this is the little things that us collectors go nuts over.
The little notch there is where they put it on the metal plate to like secure it in place.
Oh.
So this here is like a little notch in the record.
Yeah, and then do they just do like the metal work from there, pretty much?
Yeah, and I mean, like I say, it's kind of hard to see, but this is actually pressed on metal. It's a metal plate.
Yeah, studio acetate.
Yeah, so it's
cool.
That was a nice little thing to have, you know, sent to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, sure. You probably like. I guess I don't know. Maybe you were expecting like whatever, because I know what was the company that did those pressings in like the 90s for Alive 3? Was
H&H? Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, getting a Color Alive 3 or the Glow in the Dark Creatures, and sure enough, you know, you get a rarity from the golden years.
Yeah, it's like, got any more? I think that was literally like all they had. Like he was just like looking around, like, here, have this, you know.
And just to think that it was probably laying around somewhere on some shelf, you know, it's just like
for 25 years at that point or whatever. Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
Michael, this was freaking awesome. Let me tell you, it was an honor to have you on the series, and this is a truly memorable episode of Council of the Elder to have you on and to hear your stories, your testimonials, working with Bruce, and the ins and outs of what was going on at that time. It's tremendous. I cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you.
So there you guys go. That is the 10th episode of Council of the Elder, talking about archiving Bruce Kulick's legacy and more with Michael Edwards. If you have any suggestions on future episodes and who to have involved in this series, please shoot me a comment down below. I'd love to know. And if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead, give it a like, and subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video, and most importantly, keep the records spinning.